Record.
This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, everybody. Humor, right? It is something that can get lost in our world, in our daily lives when we're surrounded with stress or we're in a situation where we want to make light humor of things, but we hold ourselves back. And often things that allow us to open up to opportunities is when that self-conscious mind or that control is gone. And Tamara and I are going to deep dive into this conversation about how we can add humor to our life to make it, I'm going to say, lighter, to make it more fulfilling, to actually add self-care in part of that. So, hello, Tamara. Thank you. Welcome to Mindful Conversations. I'm looking forward to this episode with you today.
Thank you so much for having me, Tanya. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So I want to know, Tamara, and there's other people that are probably asking the same question, like, who are you? What do you do? So can you please share with us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, of course. So, my name's Tamara Szwedo. I'm a hypnotist, so I'm a clinical hypnotist in Listowel, in the Listowel area, and really, my focus is helping people to make behavioral changes. That can be an array of things. So it's a way of helping people get through the conscious mind to the subconscious. So we're kind of bypassing the conscious mind, like you just said, where we get into this idea of having to have control and be just, a certain way. Well, actually, that gets in the way of us making changes. So what we're doing is helping people to bypass and get into their subconscious. And we do that with hypnosis and something called neuro-linguistics programming. So we do a lot of NLP for short in this field as well.
And you know what I was really fascinated, Tamara, when you and I chatted, is that you opened up the fact that you've started kind of this comic relief. So tell us a little bit more about how does hypnotism fit into comic relief and how does that element come forth and how does it bring a joy to people?
Right. So what I think I would start with is you already experience hypnotic like states, and a good way of like in your everyday life, whether you're seeing a hypnotist like me or just living your life. So to tie in with this comic relief idea, if you've ever been watching a movie that's really funny, you laugh out loud, right? So this shows that even when that's not happening to you, you can start to try on the emotion of it. And we this happens with sad movies as well. This happens in all kinds of ways. But to kind of stay into the theme of how comedy helps, when somebody comes into my office, I want it to be a fun time for them mostly, right? We have to always, also have to have some serious things happen too. But when people are in that loose, fun kind of vibe, they're going to take in a lot more than when they're trying to do things right or, make sure they're not saying the wrong thing or, right. So silliness and fun, like think of a little kid, how fast little kids learn, especially when they're having fun in school or when they're having fun at home.
Yeah.
They take things in a lot faster. And that's true for adults as well. Adults are kind of funny because we think that we're like, if we're a certain age, we're grown up and we're mature. It's just not true. We're little kids in tall bodies. That's really,
Yeah.
how it is. And so we do a lot of comedy. Well, I wouldn't say comedy. We have a lot of fun in the office. I mean, I like to say I do a lot of comedy in the office, but that might be giving myself too much credit. We have a lot of fun in the office. And then what I also do is I do stage show comedy hypnosis shows. So I do those, usually about twice a year. I'm aiming for twice a year now, and that's a way of also intriguing people in a very fun way. And you'd be surprised at how many people can make really big changes, even just from those shows, because it's not directly at them in, about them personally or about them in detail. It's very general and fun, and they can take those learnings with them in all kinds of ways. So it is a lot of fun. So it is. It's not to say that it's not about the comedy and fun, but there's some underlining things going on that help people too. Like, you just never know what you're going to get when your defenses are down.
Yeah. And you know that when you mentioned your defenses are down, that brought me to, a clarification that you can offer for, people that are listening, because often it's a myth that the people being hypnotized, it's just all a show, it's fake and all that, right? So can you kind of sum it up in a non-educational way, easy to understand, how people are able to do something they never ever, I would never do that, right? So can you kind of clarify that, how that magic happens?
Right. Yeah. Good question. I like to look at it like it's not the same as being drunk, but it's in that same, right? You know when you're just like letting loose and having fun, and
Yeah.
you really are willing to do some. So when people are on stage, they're really letting their inhibitions go because they're relaxed. They're in this state where they're really able to enjoy and be a part of it. And some people will do things that, like you said, that they never thought they would, but it's also things that, especially in the shows that I do, that they're going to feel good about if they leave the show. So we're not embarrassing them. We're not making them, their family and friends, mock them or anything. It's actually all in very good fun. And
Yeah.
and I would say, like, there's so many people after that see people on stage and go, oh, I would do that next time, because
Yeah.
they in the beginning think, like you just said, where they might do things that they don't feel good about, and we don't want that to be the case. We want people to really enjoy it. But it is very similar to, or think of it like, when people are with their friends even, and they might, be a little quirkier, they might be a little louder, they might, than in a work setting, so it is this idea of having that freedom. It is a freedom to just be able to experience.
Mhm. So is it wise to say that, when a person's on stage, the hypnotism just brings them to a state of more relaxation and not letting that subconscious mind control them. It just kind of lets everything go and they still are in control. It's just that mindset is allowing them to step beyond that control and just, have fun. And so that's true, right? That the person being hypnotized is always in control.
Right. We say that when they're hypnotized, they're generally aware. They're kind of an in between a sleep or awake feeling, but they're
Mhm.
generally aware. So if there was something that they absolutely were against doing, that went against their morals or their values, they wouldn't do it.
Mhm.
And so there is, but for the most part, what they're on stage volunteering, nobody's
Mhm.
being made.
Yeah.
So they want to follow the suggestions and have a good time. And it's really, it can be very magical
Mhm.
when you let go of your conscious mind, or you
Yeah.
turn it down,
Yeah.
and you just are embracing the experience of it, having a good time, enjoying. And that's really true in everyday life as well.
Mhm.
The more that you turn your conscious mind, the more you're going to enjoy
Yeah.
the the learning and
Yeah.
the experience.
And something you touched on earlier too is that after people have had this comic relief hypnotism experience, they kind of shift something in the mindset. Do you find that they kind of let their guard down of always criticizing themselves and they begin to blossom and begin to show themselves a little bit more self-love and appreciation, and they start to perhaps even take a little bit better care of themselves?
Yeah, yeah, for sure, because they've proven to themselves that the sky didn't fall and that they actually had a good time with it.
Hmm. Hmm.
So the monster in the closet is such a big deal for people,
Yeah.
because they're so scared of the, oh no, if I went up there and people laughed at me, oh my gosh, or something, right?
Yeah.
That's just in the stage show idea. But then they take that learning into their everyday life and go, well, I was afraid of going for a walk because people might judge me, or I was afraid to go in the gym, or I was afraid to do this. Hmm, if the sky didn't fall when I went on stage and had a good time, what else am I wrong about? What
Yeah.
else can I, you know, and that confidence that comes with it when we actually start to see it's just a little kitten in the closet instead of a monster
Yeah.
is huge because we have these beliefs from usually a very young age that just kind of come with us along our journey. And when we start to prove that they're not real, it gives us this like huge opening of being able to really experience things and learn and be able to have like this new self acceptance. And yeah, it really does like open up a lot of doors just from one night of having a good time. And even people in the audience get that too. Because
Oh,
if they're not
that's
on stage, they also get the benefit of the laughter and the fun.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, we definitely need more laughter in our life. And you know, when you mentioned about it's not a monster, it's the kitten in the closet, it made me think of, I believe it's a Pixar movie, right? Is it called Monsters, where a
yes,
kid's dreams, right? And at the end, they end up being these teddy bears, and it's all about happy dreams. And I'm thinking, yeah, kind of that is life, right? That
that's
we that barrier, that roadblock, it's we can think it of the biggest, scariest thing. But if we take that small, tiny baby step, we realize, hey, I was able to do this. Okay, I can do this. So let's take
mhm,
the next baby step and see where this journey goes. So that's
yeah.
a, beautiful when you said that, kind of like I immediately thought of that movie. It's like, yeah, so true, right? And Tamara, there's life can be really rough, and I know you practice, you meet different people and they're going through different things of life, and some days you're possibly like, whoa, that was wow, a really stressful day, or this was a really high, really lighthearted day today. And getting up in the morning, I'm sure, you help people be able to deal with their deep-setted feelings, I'm going to say, or traumas inside, and you help them through that through hypnosis, and then that helps them to get up in the morning. What about from your personal side, Tamara? What's something that allows you to get up every morning? What is that motivation to say, okay, I know I have these really tough clients today, but this is what's motivating me to get up, whether it's in your practice or it's more on a personal note?
Right. Yeah, awesome. I love this because I was not always this way, so it's nice to be able to say that I do it this way now.
Yeah.
But now what like when I'm getting up, first of all, I don't think about my clients until I'm with them. That is a
Yes.
very big thing for me because I don't know who they're going to be until I
Yeah.
see them. But
Yeah.
I didn't always do that when I very first started. I remember trying to think, okay, this person's going to be like this and I'm going to say it doesn't work like that because
Exactly.
that is just not. So for it's more of a personal thing that I focus on when I'm getting up out of bed, and it's not always going to be the way that it goes, but I very much try to make it that I'm looking forward to whatever I'm going to learn. I'm looking forward to whatever experience, but I'm also looking forward to like I find movement for me is very, very
Yeah.
important. So my very first thing that I do when I get up is like within about a half an hour, I'm outside walking. And
Yes.
I find that that really, really helps to move through anything that I might
Yeah.
be struggling with or move through and just to be connected to nature. So that's a really, and I look forward to it. So as soon as I kind of wake up, I'm visualizing how it's going to be once I'm on my walk because I
Yeah.
know that that's coming.
Mhm.
But it doesn't always work, you know, perfectly, but it definitely makes it more likely that when I'm visualizing being able to enjoy that walk, being able to just like look at whatever happens this day as awesome, whether it goes well or doesn't,
Yeah.
because believe me, it doesn't always go well. But I learn from that, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so I have the pressure off to just be like, okay, well, here we go, you know, like let's
Yeah.
find out.
Yeah.
Even for things like doing this with you, if this was, you know, years ago, I would have been like stressing and,
Yeah.
you know, what am I going to say?
Yeah.
But then I wouldn't really be in it with you. I'd be in here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true because I remember we met many years ago, and yeah, definitely I can see a transformation that has happened. And I really agree with you that when we stop overthinking, that stops the overwhelm, and it
Hmm.
simplifies thought processes, and it simplifies everyday life. So instead of worrying about what your day might be like, or who you might meet, or if this is going to happen, wake up and and again, it's through practice. As you mentioned, you practice this and it just comes naturally now that you wake up, you do the things that's important for you. You do what you need to do to take care of yourself. And then whatever the day brings on, it'll bring on, right? By the end of the
Hmm.
day, you're still here, you're still alive, you're still breathing, you're still walking. Like those in itself is what we need to remember, right? What we're grateful for. I'm grateful for, XYZ. I'm grateful for I can take care of myself. I'm grateful for that I'm making myself a priority and
Hmm.
not getting overwhelmed and stuck in a rut. And I can move beyond that. So, I mean, you've talked about that yourself, that you have transitioned. And now that you've transitioned, that healing journey, occurred. And I feel too, Tamara, correct me if I'm wrong, that you allowing yourself to find out what works for you has made you, in the end, much more relaxed, especially days that could potentially be stressful. You've learned how to kind of let go of that extra stress.
For sure. And I couldn't learn that without actually going through it.
Yeah,
I couldn't learn it in my head.
yeah,
I had to mess up.
yeah.
I had to I had to because if I had, and some things were very apparent and some
Hmm.
weren't to maybe
Yeah,
others, but I knew.
yeah.
And I think that that was like, those things are really big confidence builders because that like I love, the idea of, well, whatever way this goes, the sky's
Yeah,
not going to fall,
yeah,
and
yeah.
and actually starting to and at first when I started to think that way, it was I logically got it, but not emotionally.
Yes.
And right, like I knew, okay, yeah, like I know the
Yeah,
sky's not going to fall, but
yeah.
emotionally, I was still like, no, it's going to fall. Right?
Because
It
you
was
weren't
kind of that,
believing it, right? You weren't believing
right?
in yourself and you weren't believing that. It's one thing to say it, but it's another
Yes,
to truly full-heartedly believe it.
yes, and I had to experience
Hmm.
things until I got it,
Yeah,
and be willing to um, keep going until I got it.
yeah,
And once you get it, it's like, wow, this could have been so much easier, right? But
yeah,
you don't know until you know, and that's
yeah,
just the way that it is. So having people like mentors is a huge help with that, because if we're in our own heads, we're not going to be able to see what's really happening. We're all seeing it through the experiences and the glasses we have.
yeah,
So I was very fortunate in having mentors help me, and being willing to go to them and really embrace that. It might have taken longer than it should or could, but that's even for like people following you.
hmm,
That's really, even if you're not directly with them,
yeah,
you're giving them tidbits and seeds to start to take action in that way.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's so true when you say that because I remember this is a few years ago now, but there was a lady that she always watched my lives, or she'd go back and watch my YouTube channel, or listen to, read what I'm posting, whatnot. And, she came up to me, she says, "Oh, you're Tanya Otterstein-Liehs." I'm thinking, okay, who are you? I said, yes, I am. Why, like, how do I know you? And she says, "Oh, you don't," but, and she started to list by, and she goes, "I have to tell you, you've just changed my life and I'm a happier person." Like, oh my gosh. I said, thank you so much. Right. And you have to accept that and say thank you, because sometimes we'll like, oh yeah, no, no problem, whatever. No, like thank yourself for accepting that as well. So you're right, you never know whose life you're going to touch, right?
Hmm.
And I always say, even helping one person is helping many, because it's like that domino effect. That
Hmm.
person also is glowing, they're feeling better about themselves, there's this transformation that happens, and that affects everybody else because they're saying like, oh, like, Laura, like there's something different about you. Like you just seem happier with yourself. And it's this domino effect, and it's beautiful. And,
Yeah.
it's always what I believe is failures are not failures. Failures are learning curves. What can we learn from that and change it a bit? And there's always things that are not going to work out, but that's okay because it wasn't meant to be, right? It
Hmm.
wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
Kind of like the
And
word
I love,
no. Yeah, go ahead.
well, I was going to say, and I love, first of all, to touch my favorite quote,
Yeah.
just to kind of, because it ties in, is there's no failure, only feedback.
Hmm.
And I first learned that from my mentor's mentor. His name's Scott, and maybe from my mentor herself. Her name's Robbie. But I first learned that from them, and it's like, oh, like there's no pressure if it's just learning, then it
Yeah.
can just be. And the other thing too that you're talking about that I just think is really interesting is this idea of modeling for people. So there's a, in neurolinguistics, one of the beliefs is that we learn from modeling. One of
Yeah.
the, ways that we teach is by looking at other people doing what we want to do. And so if somebody is having fun in their life or taking action or building confidence, you have no idea who you're actually helping
Yeah.
because we're all watching each other, and we can either do it in a way that we go, how when I was a teenager, I know I used to go, oh, well, that's them because they're special or they have, this or that.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really being in a good, mature way of saying, oh, wow, if they can do it, how can I,
Yeah.
copy them or model them?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so even people having fun in their lives and being silly, like, on this stage in the show, if we're talking about that, or just like, I was playing tag in my yard. I'm, a very adult woman, but I'm
Mhm.
playing tag the other day, and one of my neighbors saw us and was like, that is so much fun. I haven't played tag in years. Right. So having this like ability to model for other people that
Yeah.
you can really do it in a way that it really is more integrated in a healthy way when
Yeah.
you're honoring yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just about having fun, right? Never mind that adults, that critic adults saying, oh, what are other people going to think if I start to have fun and play games and have a water, now that the weather's getting warm here in Canada and Ontario, water gun fights, right? Like just
Hmm.
yeah, have fun, right? Have fun. We need to do more of that. We need to do more of that.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a question I'm really curious to hear your answer for. And that is, how do you maintain, Tamara, a positive mindset when the world around you can feel and look so negative?
Yes, and that is a big one for a lot of people, myself included, because not everyone, when I first got into this new way of looking at the world, I'd say, not everyone in my life was on board with it or understood, I guess, because they were all in, not all of them, but there was some that were still in their own hypnotic like state of thinking that being being fearful or being in a security kind of mindset about things was actually safer for them, where actually it was keeping them stuck. So when I started to do this, first of all, again, I had to really have people on the other side of my life helping me, because it's very difficult to do it. Think of everyone in your life as an unofficial hypnotist. Okay, so everyone, you're also an unofficial hypnotist for the people in your life.
Yeah.
So we've got to really like see, we can love and appreciate them, but we've got to see if what they're doing and believing is useful for us too, or if it's just something that we might have gotten used to doing. If it's not matching where we want to go or how we really want to live, then we've got to learn how to vaccinate against it. And that took a lot of it took some awareness from me, and it also took probably some forgiveness ideas with that, and just being able to love and appreciate them and know that they're just doing what they're doing. Because
Hmm.
that is, the people in our life can be very either helpful or not.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've just got to love and appreciate them as people and know that we're responsible for our own actions and responses. So
Yeah.
um, I found that hypnosis for me was a huge help because it was a way of starting to calm my conscious mind and let myself start to visualize how I actually wanted it to go,
Yeah.
starting to really learn how to do that more in the moment with things like neurolinguistics. So I actually do self hypnosis every day,
Mm.
a lot. And I do it in technique ways where it might take me 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but I also do it kind of just in my everyday walking around, kind of way, because if we're in here, then we
Yeah.
want to really make it useful.
Yeah.
So there's a comedian, his name's Tom Dreesen, and he was on a podcast with my mentor a while ago, and he talks about how um, when he first started, his comedy and building his career. So he grew up very poor, and this wasn't like in the war; it was like in the 50s and 60s, but like no shoes
Yeah.
kind of idea, right?
Yeah.
He lived in his car for a long time,
Mhm.
and he talks about how one of the things he started to do was he started to look at his mind as a garden, and he would say, if you have a weed in your garden or if you have weeds in your garden, you don't let them just take over. You pull them
Yeah.
and you nourish the fruits or the vegetables, the
Yeah.
flowers. So you would think of that with negative thoughts. He
Yeah.
would think of like pulling them out
Yeah.
and then really focusing on the positive. And he would visualize, opening for Frank Sinatra and being on Johnny Carson.
Yes.
And he did open for Frank Sinatra
Yeah.
for years. And
Yeah.
he was on Johnny Carson a bunch of times. So
Wow.
but he was doing that living in his car. And
Yeah.
so I
Wow.
kind of love that idea, especially now gardening season. It really
Mm.
makes sense because we're thinking gardening. And if we can
Yeah.
think of our minds that same way, that really, really helps. So it's not about judgment. It's got to be about compassion for yourself.
Yeah.
And compassion for yourself is a huge one because if you're looking at yourself as just a human being, and sometimes it's got to be enough to be like, today's going to be, it might not be like my best day, but it's going to be a day that I just do my best. And, having that grace for yourself
Mhm.
it really helps to move through those struggles of judgment for yourself, right?
Yeah.
That really,
Yeah.
that's not good. Doesn't
No,
help.
something that I practice every day and I talk about it all the time is, when you look in the mirror, give yourself a compliment,
Hmm.
right? And
Right.
people, especially women, have such a hard time doing it because there's always something you to find not to like about yourself. But when you start to practice, it becomes a ritual, a daily habit. You give yourself a compliment, right? And you find, something beautiful like in each day. It's so, so important, right? Because if we do not allow ourselves to find a compliment to give ourselves, if we do not allow ourselves to find something beautiful in each day, then you can't help but remain stuck in that negative mindset. So,
Right. Sorry. And
yeah,
just quickly with that,
yeah,
like it's almost like trying to find your way to a new place by
yeah.
looking at all the things, all the ways that don't work. Like
Yes.
if you needed to go to work and you went, well, I can't take that road, can't take that road, can't take that road.
Yeah.
How are you ever going to get where you want to go? But
Yeah.
looking at the things you do appreciate yourself, even if it's just the color of your eyes to start,
Yeah.
well, there's a
Exactly.
road, there's a part of the journey right there. And then you can build on that. But
Hmm.
you can't get there if you're looking at all the things that
No.
aren't there.
No. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Yet, yet.
yes. Yes, good
Some
word.
they'll come. Yeah.
Exactly. So, as we're drawing slowly a close to our chat today, there's some questions I definitely want to ask you with the few minutes time that we have
I
left.
just saw that, so I was like, I'm just going to say this really quick. Yeah.
That's fine. And it's learning a little bit about you, right? A little bit of a personal note. Now, you mentioned already the quote, so that is wonderful. What's something advice you could share with our listeners still today that you wanted to mention and haven't had a chance yet?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one I think is that like the one I'm learning the most more and more and more is that just because you've lived your life a certain way, or you've seen people in your life live a certain way, and even the people you grew up with, your parents, sometimes we have this idea that because our parents grew up with these values or beliefs, that as a loyalty thing we have to also have them, and a lot of the times they don't match what
No.
we really want. So always be willing to create your life the way you want, and that's going to take some trial and error, that's going to take rehearsal, that's going to take having ups and downs, and just knowing what you really want,
Yeah.
and just keep and know that that's okay to change here and
Yeah.
there too, but you're just keeping going towards that, whatever it is that you really want to create.
Yeah.
And life is just too short, so you gotta find the joy, you gotta find the
Mhm.
challenges, the purpose. You've got to find a way to just like really have fun with it, because we only get so many days, so many years,
Yeah.
right? So many moments.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, I'd say have compassion for yourself, and really find those bits that are rich in value.
Yeah, so important, right? I mean, our parents, it's a generational thing too. The way they grew up, the way they raised us is completely different, right? Some things we take with us and some things no, I'm gonna, leave that
Right. Yeah,
back.
some are useful, right? Like
Yeah,
there are some useful, but it's when we get this like loyalty idea, like, oh no, if we could be 60, 70 years old and
yeah,
still trying to appease our parents who
yeah,
might not even be alive
yeah,
anymore. But
yeah,
we're like, we're trying to keep that loyalty, but you can love and appreciate them more by actually living your life in the way that's congruent and honoring you.
yeah,
So you'll have
exactly.
more appreciation, because on a subconscious level we kind of resent when we're, oh, this is just because my mom made me, when I was 5 years old, and so we've
Yeah,
got to kind of learn how to do that for ourselves. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And here's a question that you may not expect, but I'm curious to see what your answer is going to be. So, Tamara, if you didn't exist today, why would the world need to create you?
Oh, that is a um I don't know if it would, but not because of that, but because I don't look at myself as special, just that I can learn whatever I'm experiencing and teach it. So almost like I'm a vessel
Mm,
for taking what I learn or experience and sharing it. So it's like, yeah, the universe would need to create somebody like that, but I think that it already has by creating everybody. So we're
mm,
all in that same way, where we can all be able to turn our identity down and be more just in the flow of people and life and the world, and yeah.
yeah, nice. So I'm going to say the world would need to create, Tamara, to share your gifts, right? To share your
Yeah.
knowledge, to share what you've
Yeah.
learned, and to allow them to a space to open up where they would not have opened up before.
Right, perhaps, right? Yeah, that,
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I have a feeling that everyone can do what we're doing, what anyone in some way, shape, or form. It's just being willing to do it in and to stay with the idea that you're learning, and that it's not a I often have to remind myself, especially in the beginning, it's not about me. It's
Mhm.
about the person in front of me, even in my friends and family.
Yeah.
It's not about me when I'm talking with them and trying to help them.
Yeah.
It's about the person in front of me. So yeah, there would need to be, maybe, maybe there just needs to be more of us all having that freedom, because it is a freedom once you can just be and not feel like you have to prove much.
Right.
And it's not something I'd say I'm 100% in, but I'm definitely way better than I used to be. So, yeah, there'd have to be, if I wasn't here, there is a lot of other people like me, right? But yeah,
Lovely. Yeah,
yeah.
nice. Thank you. Well, thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. We've talked about things maybe people listening today haven't even thought of before. So thank you very much, Tamara, for sharing your wisdom and your thoughts. I really appreciate that. And those of
Thank
you
you.
that are catching this recording and watching live, thank you so much for being here, for watching another episode of Mindful Conversation. This is Tanya Otterstein-Liehs, your mindset coach, saying and reminding you, when you go to bed this evening, think about the best thing that happened, because no matter what, there always is something wonderful that happened. And when you wake up in the morning, remember, write it down or think of 3 or 5 things that you are grateful for. Thank you. Until next time, this is Tanya Otterstein-Liehs saying, always be proud of yourself, and remember, give yourself a compliment.